Everyone, welcome back to step 3, which is coming up with your driving question. You've come up with your project idea, you've identified the need to know most crucial skills and questions students might ask. Now it's time to come up with a driving question, which if you did those other two pieces, shouldn't be too hard for you to do. But before we actually get to the driving question, we're going to practice with some of our own. So here, for example, is a project. Students will design and pitch the plan for a new school campus that promotes 21st century learning. And what they need to know is scale drawings, budget and financing, persuasive communication, and media and technology. Now, if you recall, if we go back over there, good questions are open-ended. They're able to capture the project's main focus. They're understanding and inspiring to students. And it creates a need to know for the standards identified in the project plan. So given those qualities, and if this here is your task for students, they're design and pitch a plan for new school campus to promote 21st century learning, how might you structure that driving question to ensure that they get at these need to know skills? So that is your main task right now. Take about the next couple minutes to write that driving question. Pause the video. Welcome back. Hopefully you've had some time to write your driving question and you filled that in here. We're going to kind of do that together. Keep in mind, good driving questions, problem-based driving questions, philosophical-based. What would make our water safer to drink? It's very action-oriented. How can we better protect our local estuary from pollution? Notice how, again, those are very much tailored in local estuary. How can we better protect? And there's a key word from pollution. So the parameters are set on projects. They're open, but they're defined enough to set parameters. Now I just gave you an example of one. Design a new school space, right? 21st century skills. You had scale drawings, budget and financing, persuasive communication, and media and technology. So what might be your driving question for that project? Now, I'm going to take you through this, how I might write that driving question. So I'm going to look and I'm going to start out with, how can we, because I always like that, how can we, and they're going to design and pitch a plan for a new school that promotes 21st century learning. How can we, let's see, and that scale drawings, budget and financing. How can we design an affordable, and it's a new campus that promotes 21st century learning. How can we design an affordable space? And I'm going to say, can we design and pitch an affordable space for 21st century learning? Now that might be my start. Okay, and I might look at it and say, okay, design and pitch an affordable space for 21st century. Is that going to get at scale drawings? Yes. Is it going to get budget and financing? Yes, because it says affordable. I might say instead of affordable, cost effective, because that's going to help them look at a little bit about sustainable and eco-friendly design. So they're not, wasting resources. So cost effective space for 21st century learning. They have to use persuasive communication to get that somewhere in the driving question. They have to pitch. I might say, and effectively pitch, perhaps. I'm putting that indicator in there. Now, as you see, what I'm doing as I'm going through this driving question is I am starting with a question, then I'm going back to say, did I get those need to know skills down? So how can we design and effectively pitch a cost-effective space for 21st century learning? Through 21st century learning, they're going to have to learn about, well, what is that? Effectively pitch gets to my persuasive communication right here. Design gets to scale drawings. And budget and financing, cost-effective. Notice how I have those parameters built into the driving question based off the project description and the need to know skills. So I just took you through the process of designing one driving question. Go ahead and complete those other two. Don't worry, the driving question I know is extremely hard, but once you get that driving question down, you're going to feel very confident that you can guide students in the right direction for learning. So go ahead and take the time to do that and write the driving question for those other projects. Okay, I'm going to see you back here where we're going to discuss this particular driving question. So hit pause on the video and take the time now to do that driving question exercise. All right, so welcome back. And hopefully you've had time to finish all those driving questions. I'm not going to go through the other two, but hopefully you've really learned about how to write that question that's open-ended, provides parameters for the project, and gets students in that need-to-know content. Now we're going to look at writing the driving question for our personal projects. Now, going through the projects that we wrote for the sample case studies, data we said was important because it really gets students looking at actual research that they're going to have to conduct rather than just making a solution right away. Positive impact, it's action-oriented, and it's on a local waterway. Okay, so those are the parameters of that driving question. Let me go back here to my arrow. And this was, how do we observe and communicate the magic of plants at our school? Again, we like this one because it's communicate, observe. It's going to get kids questioning right away, well, what does observation of plants look like? How do we observe plants grow? At our school, keeps it confined to that area so they can look very specifically at what the conditions are for plant growth at the school. Now I'm going to go back over here to our project planner and write the driving question. So this is your task, write the driving question. And again, I would start by just thinking big and then starting to get those need-to-know skills. So how can we use data to make an effective improvement on our local waterway? Now, I might add how to make an improvement on our local waterway. If I look back at the driving question, I think it was a little different. Make a positive impact, right? To make an improvement on our local waterway. There might be something about the community to help, maybe to help our community make an improvement, That then gets students focused on, well, what is our community? How can we make an improvement? I looked at what my need-to-know skills were: environmental science, informational writing. I might write environmental data. I mean, data is big, so you might keep the parameters large so they can look at what's all the type of data that we can include. How can we use environmental data to help our community make an improvement on our local waterway? So I'm still playing around with the question. Now, I'll have you know that when I first did the driving question, I'm not kidding you, this is what it was. How do we improve air quality in Beijing? Now, notice how big it is. It's in all of Beijing, and it's improve air quality. So I thought students, by leaving it open, that they'd get a lot out of it. Unfortunately, it was very hard for us to manage. So unless you're really, really deep down in project-based learning, you've been doing a lot, and you can manage thousands of projects going on at once, I would try to keep your driving question focused. It's still engaging and inspiring for kids. And if you can get students to asking lots of deep questions around it, it'll keep your project focused. That driving question should be your focus, should be focal center throughout the whole project. It never leaves that space. You're always referring back to it to help keep students focused. So I hope you enjoyed that exercise and you've written your driving question. I'll see you now after you've written driving questions for identifying the 21st century skills that students are going to need to know. So I'll see you in that next module.